Good evening, my friend. Tonight, you will play the role of an ordinary person, one who happens to be holding a script of rebirth. You will begin from the most insignificant position imaginable, and from there, you will build an arc for the end of the world. You will dine on the very things your enemies once loved. You will fall asleep peacefully to the sound of desperate hands pounding on locked doors. And what you are about to do is not merely survive. You will calmly, gracefully observe a human tragedy, a stage play of humanity that you yourself helped direct. Now find a comfortable position, turn off the lights, put your phone away, and step into tonight's story. You jerk awake from a hard plywood bed. A strangled, gurgling sound escapes your throat, as if someone is choking you from the inside. The pain is far too real. Your neck feels ripped open, blood vessels burst. Warm liquid sprays across your face. It's blood. Just a moment ago, you were pinned to the marble floor of the Summit Private Club, held down by your manager, Brian Walker, to buy himself time to escape into the VIP lounge. He shoved you backward, straight into the roaring crowd of monsters behind him, as casually as tossing away a garbage bag. There's one still alive. Eat him. Don't eat me. Brian's distorted scream still echoes inside your skull. You gasp violently. Cold sweat soaks through the old, faded yellow t-shirt clinging to your body. The room smells damp, mixed with the sharp, oily scent of chili oil drifting in from next door. Wait, chili oil, not the stench of rotting flesh. Your hands tremble as you reach for your neck. No wound, no torn muscle, no exposed arteries. Only slick sweat and the frantic pulse of your carotid artery beneath your fingers. You grab the phone beside your pillow. The screen lights up, stabbing your eyes. The 1st of September 2026, 8:30 a.m. You freeze. Your pupils contract violently. The 1st of September, that means there are still 7 full days before the 8th of September, the day the world ends. You're back. You've been reborn. As the surge of wild excitement fades, something colder, heavier, settles deep into your chest. Hatred. You close your eyes. Brian Walker's greasy, twisted face surfaces in your mind, along with those so-called elite members, the ones who used to snap their fingers at you like you were a dog. In the apocalypse, they would beat you half to death over a single cracker. In your previous life, you were nothing more than a food runner at the Summit Club. Monthly pay, $3,500. Your job was to carry bottles of wine worth tens of thousands of dollars, slipping silently through the laughter of rich women, like a shadow that didn't even deserve a name. They never bothered to learn yours. Hey, what's your name again? When they were in a bad mood, they flicked cigarette ash onto your uniform. In that life, you lived like a dog in this city. And in the end, you died like one. But this time is different. You know exactly what's coming. 7 days from now, the sun will turn an unnatural shade of blood red. Shortly after that, over 80% of humanity will mutate into flesh-hungry aberrations. You climb out of bed, pull the curtains open. Outside, traffic floods the streets. Car horns scream through the morning rush hour. A sound that once drove you insane. Now it sounds beautiful. You're going to live. Not just live. You're going to live better than everyone else. You will stand in hell with a glass of wine in your hand, watching those who once looked down on you crawl through filth, fighting over scraps. First, you need money, a lot of it. Your fingers tremble with excitement as you pick up your phone once more. Money. In the coming apocalypse, money will become the most useless thing in the world. But right now it is the only thing that can buy you a future. You sit on the edge of the bed and force yourself to calm down. Panic is meaningless. Excitement is dangerous. The biggest mistake people make after rebirth is believing they have infinite time. 7 days sounds like a lot. In reality, it's barely enough. You open your banking app. The number on the screen is painfully familiar. $6,482.17. That's everything you have. Rent is due in 5 days. Credit card bills are already overdue. In your previous life, this number haunted you every night. In this life, it barely qualifies as pocket change. You scroll through your contacts. Most of the names are meaningless. Co-workers, former classmates, people who vanished from your life the moment you stopped being useful. You skip them all. Then you stop. There it is. Mark Henderson, your former college roommate, a guy who liked to talk big, drink expensive whiskey he couldn't afford, and brag about investment opportunities that never made money. In your memory, Mark survives the first wave of the apocalypse, not because he's smart, but because he's lucky. His parents own 3 houses in the suburbs and a warehouse near the old industrial district. That warehouse will later become one of the safest shelters in the city. Right now, though, Mark is still just a guy drowning in debt and pretending everything is under control. You tap his name. Shh. Mark's voice sounds groggy. Man, it's early. What's up? You take a slow breath. Mark, you say, I need to borrow some money. There's a pause, then a laugh. Bro, he says, you and I both know I'm not exactly rolling in cash. I know, you reply calmly. That's why I'm calling you. Another pause. You can almost picture him frowning, trying to process that. How much are we talking? He finally asks. 20,000. Silence. Then are you out of your damn mind? You let him finish. You don't interrupt. You don't explain. People are far more willing to listen when they think they're the one in control. After a full 10 seconds, you speak again. I'll pay you back in 10 days, you say. Double. Mark exhales sharply. Bullshit. Maybe, you agree. But you've got nothing to lose. That's not true, he snaps. I'd lose 20 grand. You'll lose more if you don't lend it to me. The words slip out smoothly, as if you've practiced them 1,000 times. Mark goes quiet. You into something illegal? He asks. No, you say. Something inevitable. Another long pause. You hear the faint sound of a lighter flicking open. Mark smokes when he's nervous. Listen, he says slowly. I can maybe scrape together 10. 20, you repeat. Jesus Christ. I'll sign whatever you want, you add. Contract I.O. Video recording. I don't care. That part is true. None of it will matter in 10 days. Why, Mark finally asks. Why right now? You look at the sunlight spilling through the window, at the city below still pretending tomorrow is guaranteed. Because, you say, the world's about to get very expensive. Mark laughs again, but this time there's no humor in it. You sound crazy, he says. I know. Another stretch of silence, then a sigh. Fine, Mark mutters. I'll move the money today, but if you disappear, I won't, you say. And Mark, yeah, when this is over, don't thank me. You hang up before he can respond. Your phone vibrates almost immediately. Incoming transfer pending, $20,000. You don't smile. This is only the beginning. You open your credit card apps one by one. Limit after limit appears on the screen. You remember how cautious you were in your previous life, how afraid of debt, how proud you felt paying things off early. You almost laugh. Debt is a problem for people who expect the future to function normally. You tap cash advance. Confirm again. Confirm again. By noon, your available balance is maxed out. Your total debt now exceeds $86,000. In your old life, this number would have crushed you. Now, it barely registers. You put on a jacket, grab your backpack. As you step outside, the city hums with life. Office workers clutching coffee cups, delivery trucks blocking traffic, a street musician playing off-key guitar. All of them believe they still have time. You walk toward the subway station. Your next stop, Costco. There are two types of shelters in the apocalypse. The first kind is the one everyone can see. Abandoned malls, police stations, hospitals, government buildings. They look strong, they look safe, and they become graves. The second kind is the one nobody notices. Quiet, forgotten, already written off as useless. Those are the places that survive. You learn that lesson the hard way in your previous life. On the third day after the world collapsed, you followed the crowd into a former high school gym. By nightfall, there were over 300 people inside. By dawn, only 50 were still alive. The rest didn't die to monsters. They died to fear, to hunger, to each other. You shake the memory away as the subway car rattles forward. 3 stops later, you step off near the old industrial district. The air here smells different: oil, rust, and damp concrete. Most of the factories shut down years ago. What remains are empty shells and for lease signs bleached by the sun. This is where Mark's family warehouse is. You walk 3 blocks and stop in front of a low concrete building. No logo, no sign. Just a faded number spray painted above the metal door. 417 in your previous life. By the time you learned about it, the place already belonged to someone else. Simone with more guns and fewer morals. You pull out your phone. Mark answers on the second ring. I'm outside, you say. Outside the warehouse, the street is deserted. No pedestrians, no parked cars. Only the distant hum of traffic from the main road. A minute later, a side door creaks open. Mark steps out. Jeans, a wrinkled hoodie, dark circles under his eyes. He looks at you like he's trying to decide whether you're desperate or insane. So, he says, this is the big plan. You nod for now. He snorts. You always were vague. You follow him inside. The air changes instantly. Cool, dreamy. The kind of temperature that doesn't care about the seasons. The warehouse interior is vast and mostly empty. Concrete floor, steel beams, stacks of wooden pallets pushed against the far wall. This place hasn't been used in years, Mark says. My dad rents part of it for storage, but half the space is just dead. You walk slowly, counting steps in your head, measuring sightlines, exits, blind spots. There's a basement, Mark adds. Old storm shelter. I think haven't been down there since I was a kid. Your heart rate picks up, just a little. Show me hesitates, then shrugs. Sure, why not? He leads you toward a metal door, half hidden behind stacked crates. The stairs descend into darkness. The smell down here is stronger. Dust, metal, and something stale. The light reveals a narrow corridor with thick concrete walls. At the end, a heavy steel door. Your breath catches. This is it. In your previous life, this door didn't open for you. This time it will. Mark struggles with the handle before the door swings open with a groan. Inside is a rectangular space bear. Cold and perfect reinforced walls. Low ceiling. No windows. There's an old ventilation system embedded into the wall, its intake leading somewhere above ground. You step inside. The silence here feels heavy, safe. How big is this? You ask. About 900 square feet, Mark says. Give or take. Enough. More than enough. You crouch and knock on the wall solid. No hollow echo. Your mind is already racing, shelving units along the walls, water barrels in the corners, a generator near the ventilation shaft, sleeping area here, storage there, 2 exits, 1 main stairwell, 1 emergency hatch hidden behind a rusted panel. You remember how people screamed when the power went out, how they begged to be let inside. You straighten up. I want this space, you say. Mark blinks. Want it. I want to use it, you clarify, for a while. For what? You meet his eyes. Insurance. He stares at you, waiting for a punchline. It never comes. You're serious, he says quietly. Mark runs a hand through his hair. You know my parents won't just, I'll pay, you say. How much? You name a number. Mark whistles softly. Damn, that's on top of the money I borrowed, you add. This is separate. Mark studies your face. He looks like a man standing at the edge of a decision he doesn't fully understand. Finally, he nods. I'll talk to them, he says. No promises. That's enough. As you turn to leave, you pause. And Mark. Yeah, when things start going wrong, you say. Don't come here without calling me first. Mark frowns. What does that mean? It means, you reply calmly, that locked doors save lives. You walk up the stairs without waiting for his response. Behind you, the steel door closes. The sound echoes like a promise. The first rule of survival is simple. You don't prepare like you're planning a camping trip. You prepare like civilization is about to disappear. You stand at the entrance of Costco, watching automatic doors slide open and shut. People stream in and out. pushing oversized carts, complaining about parking spots and free sample lines. They argue over brands, over discounts, over nonsense. You blend in effortlessly. A baseball cap pulled low, a neutral jacket, nothing memorable. The best survivor is the one nobody notices. You grab a cart, then another. You link them together and push both forward. No one says a word. Bulk buying is the norm here. Your first stop is water, not bottled water. That's a beginner's mistake. You head straight for industrial-grade 55-gallon water barrels. 2 carts, enough to last months if used correctly. Next, food. You don't buy what tastes good. You buy what lasts. White rice, dry beans, pasta-rolled oats. Calories per dollar, shelf life, storage efficiency. You stack 50-pound bags until the carts creak. Then canned goods, beans, corn, peaches, spam. You ignore the labels. Protein is protein. You pass the bakery section without slowing down. Fresh bread is a lie people tell themselves to feel human. You move on to medical supplies, painkillers, antibiotic substitutes, bandages, disinfectant. You clear an entire shelf into your cart. A woman nearby stares at you. You meet her eyes for half a second, then look away. Fear spreads faster than any infection. You don't give it a host. Next, power portable generators. Gas cans, extension cords. You choose the quietest model available. Noise gets people killed. You add solar chargers, batteries, every size they sell. Then tools, crowbars, hammers, duct tape, plastic sheeting. You hesitate in front of the firearms counter. You remember the chaos, the lines, the paperwork. Not today. Guns attract attention. Attention attracts death. You'll come back later when everyone else is panicking. You finish with clothing, thermal layers, gloves, socks. More socks than you think you'll ever need. Cold kills long before hunger does. At checkout, the total climbs rapidly. 5 figures, then 6. The cashier doesn't blink. This is Costco. No one asks questions. You swipe your card. Approved. Again. Approved. Again. By the time you leave, your available credit is almost gone. You load the truck 1 pallet at a time. The sky is clear, blue, perfect. The kind of day people remember as the last normal one. As you drive toward the warehouse, your phone buzzes. A message from Mark: "You really doing this?" My parents agreed. Short-term lease. Cash up front. You reply with a single word. Good. When you arrive, you don't park out front. You back the truck into the loading bay. Doors closed. No audience. You work methodically. Barrels first. Food next. Medical supplies labeled and stacked. You don't rush. Speed is how mistakes happen. By nightfall, the warehouse floor looks different. Organized. Intentional. Civilization reduced to pallets and plastic wrap. You sit on an upside-down bucket and drink from a bottle of water. It tastes clean. Safe. You think of all the people eating out tonight, laughing, making plans for next week. They think preparation is something you do later. You check your watch. 3 days left. Plenty of time. That's what everyone thinks. The world doesn't end with a scream. It ends with confusion. You wake up earlier than usual, not because of an alarm, but because the air feels wrong, too still, too quiet. You check the time, 11:32 a.m., 28 minutes left. You finish your preparations in silence. Generator checked, ventilation clear, emergency hatch unobstructed. You eat a simple breakfast, oatmeal, canned peaches. Water, nothing special, ritual matters on the last morning of the old world. You sit on a folding chair inside the underground room. The concrete walls feel colder today. Your phone buzzes. Messages pile in. Group chats. News alerts. Missed calls. You don't open them. Panic is contagious. You glance at the digital clock mounted on the wall. 11:48. Above the ground, sirens begin to wail. Not police, not fire. Emergency broadcast. A distorted voice bleeds through the radio. Unusual solar activity. Temporary atmospheric phenomenon. Citizens advised to remain calm. You almost smile. Remain calm. That phrase always comes right before disaster. 11:57. The lights flicker once, twice, then stabilize. You stand. Your heart rate remains steady. This is the moment that killed you last time. You remember the sky. You remember people pointing upward, laughing nervously, recording videos. You remember how quickly laughter turned into screaming. 11:59. You count the seconds in your head. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The lights go out. Total darkness, then red. A deep, suffocating crimson bleeds through the ventilation grate. It paints the concrete walls like fresh wounds. Your phone vibrates violently. Emergency alert. You ignore it. You already know. Above the ground, the city erupts. Car alarms scream. Glass shatters. People shout prayers they haven't said in years. You move to the monitor connected to the exterior camera. The screen flickers to life. The sun hangs low in the sky, wrong. Not orange, not gold. Red, as if the world itself is hemorrhaging. People flood the streets. Some stare upward, frozen. Some run. Some fall to their knees. Then the first one convulses. A man drops to the pavement, body twisting unnaturally. His screams cut off mid-sentence. Bones crack. Skin splits. You don't look away. You force yourself to watch. This is not cruelty. This is education. One by one, others collapse. The transformation is fast, too fast. Within minutes, the street becomes a slaughterhouse. The camera shakes as someone slams into the warehouse door. A fist pounds against the metal. Then another. Then many. You mute the audio. Sound is a luxury you don't need. Your phone buzzes again. A call. Mark. You hesitate for half a second, then answer. Where are you? He shouts. His voice is breaking. People are something's wrong. Go home, you say calmly. Lock the doors. Don't open them. What about you? I'm safe. A crash sounds on his end. A scream. The line goes dead. You lower the phone. You don't call back. You can't save everyone. You can barely save yourself. Minutes pass. Hours, the red light outside never fades. By nightfall the screams thin out, replaced by wet, animal sounds echoing through the streets. You turn off the monitor, sit back down. For the first time since rebirth, your hands tremble. Not from fear, from relief. You made it. Day 0 is over, and tomorrow, the real test begins. Hunger doesn't arrive all at once. It creeps in, quietly, politely. At first, people still believe in systems. They line up outside grocery stores that will never open again. They knock on police stations with doors already locked from the inside. They refresh their phones waiting for updates that stopped coming hours ago. You watch it all from the safety of concrete and steel. Day 1, the streets are chaos. Cars abandoned in the middle of intersections. Suitcases left open on sidewalks. Shoes without owners. The infected roam freely now, drawn to sound, to movement, to hope. You keep the lights off. Darkness is camouflaged. Day 2. The screaming fades. Not because things are better, but because fewer people are left who can scream. You see survivors moving differently now. No crowds, no shouting, small groups, quick movements. Predators learning to hunt. You eat on schedule. Rice, beans, canned meat. You measure portions carefully. Discipline is what separates stockpiling from survival. Your phone lies silent. No signal, no notifications. Just a dead screen reflecting your own face. You barely recognize it. Day 3. Rain falls. Cold, relentless. The smell hits first. Rot, wasp, death. Even underground, you can't escape it completely. The ventilation system hums softly, filtering air that no longer belongs to the living. On the monitor, you spot movement near the warehouse. A man thin, bearded, dragging one leg. He collapses against the door. You freeze the frame. Zoom in. It's Brian Walker, your former manager, the man who fed you to the monsters. You feel nothing. No anger, no triumph, just a dull acknowledgement of inevitability. Brian pounds weakly on the metal. His mouth forms words you can't hear. You don't need to. You know what he's saying. Please. The camera catches his eyes. They flick toward the security light. Hope. You sit back in your chair. You sip water. You wait. Minutes pass. Then an hour. Brian slides down the door, leaving a dark smear behind. He stops moving. The light stays red. You turn off the monitor. Some lessons only work once. Day 4. Silence, an unnatural one. The infected have thinned out, either wandered off or destroyed each other. The living are harder to spot now. They don't move during the day anymore. They've learned. You make a list. Remaining water, remaining calories, medical supplies. You calculate. You're ahead of schedule. That thought scares you more than being behind. Day 5. Someone tries the emergency hatch slow, careful. You hold your breath. A shadow passes over the camera, then retreats. You don't chase it. Curiosity gets people killed. That night, you cook steak. Real steak. The smell fills the bunker. Rich, indecent. You chew slowly, listening to distant howls echo through the city. Civilization ended 7 days ago. And yet, here you are, eating better than you ever did before. Day 6. You dream of lines, bread lines, people waiting for help but never arrives. You wake up sweating. The generator hums, the lights stay on. You're still alive. Outside, Samono screams again. Just one. It ends quickly. You check the date. The 14th of September, a week since the world died. You exhale. This phase is over. Hunger has done its work. The survivors left outside now are either dangerous or desperate enough to become dangerous. You stand, load your backpack. Tomorrow you open the door. The first rule of contact after the collapse is simple. You don't announce yourself. You let others discover you. Hunger sharpens senses. Desperation does the rest. You finish packing your backpack, water, medical kit, a single flare, 2 protein bars, no excess. You turn off the main lights and switch to auxiliary power. The bunker sinks back into shadow. You unlock the inner door. The sound echoes louder than you expect. Metal against metal, a sound that hasn't existed here for days. You wait. 10 seconds. 30. Nothing. You move slowly up the stairs. Each step is deliberate. No rushing. At the top, you crack the door open just enough to see. The street outside is unrecognizable. Burnt. Out cars. Trash piled into drifts. Windows smashed and blackened. The air smells wrong. Smoke. Rot. Something metallic. You step out. The sun is still red dimmer now, like a wound beginning to scab. You don't go far, just far enough. You kneel and set up a small camping stove behind a concrete barrier. You take the steak from your bag, thick, well, marbled. You place it on the pan. The sizzle is immediate, violent. The smell rises fast, rich, savage. You close your eyes. For a moment, it feels like summer. You wait. You don't have to wait long footsteps, soft, uneven. You keep cooking. A shadow stretches across the ground. Then a voice. Please, you don't look up. I can trade, the voice says. Anything. You flip the steak. The sound is obscene. You shouldn't be here, you say calmly. Silence. Then I smelled food. You finally look up. A woman, early 30s, sunken cheeks, hands shaking. Her eyes never leave the pan. What do you want? She asks. You take the steak off the heat. Let it rest. You cut it in half. The inside is pink, perfect. You hold one half up. Information, you say. Her throat works as she swallows. About what? Who's alive, you reply. Who's armed? Who's organized? She nods too fast. Yes, I know things. You hand her the meat. She takes it with both hands, burning her fingers. She doesn't care. She eats like she's afraid the food might vanish. Between bites, she talks. About a group 3 blocks south. About a man with a shotgun. About a family barricaded in a pharmacy. You listen. You don't comment. When she's done, you hand her a bottle of water. She cries. You stand. That's all, you say. She looks up, panicked. Will you? Number she understands. Understanding comes quickly when hunger has taught you enough. She backs away slowly, disappears down the street. You pack up. You leave no trace. Back inside, you lock the door. Your hands are steady. The rules worked. Tomorrow, others will come. The smell will travel farther, and word spreads faster than hunger. The first attack never looks like an attack. It looks like a mistake, a misunderstanding. A man who just wants to talk. You sense it before you see it. The air outside the bunker feels tighter today. Quieter, the kind of quiet that doesn't belong to an empty city, but to people holding their breath. You don't cook today. No smell. You watch the monitors instead. At noon, 3 figures appear at the edge of the camera's range. 2 men, 1 woman. They move together, too coordinated, not starving, not lost. Armed, one of the men raises a hand and points directly at the warehouse door. Your door. They approach slowly, confident. You don't move. You don't reach for anything. You wait. A knock echoes through the concrete, soft, polite. A voice calls out. We know you're in there. You smile. They always say that. Another knock. Louder. We're not here to hurt anyone. The voice continues. We just want to talk. You mute the audio feed. Words are just another weapon. The camera shows the woman stepping forward. She's holding something white. A rag, a flag. Peace. She presses it gently against the metal door. A smear appears. Red. Mutt hers. You zoom in. It's fresh. A warning. A promise. Your heart rate remains steady. You stand. Put on your jacket. Check your gloves. You move to the inner control panel and flip a single switch. Outside, the security lights snap on. Bright. Blinding. The sudden illumination startles them. One man stumbles back. The other raises his weapon, a crowbar. Not a gun. Amateurs. You speak into the intercom. Your voice comes out calm, flat. You have 30 seconds, you say. Leave. They freeze. Then the man with the crowbar laughs. See, he says to the others. Told you. He steps forward and slams the crowbar into the door. Metal shrieks. The sound echoes down the street. You count 29. The woman's smile fades. Wait, she says. Let's think. Too late. The second blow lands harder. The door holds. You reach the end of your count. 0. You press the button. From the side alley, a speaker activates. A low-frequency pulse rolls outward. Not loud, just deep. The kind of sound you feel in your bones. The infected hear it instantly. From every direction, movement. Shadows detach from corners, from behind cars, from broken doorways. The attackers realize it 1 second too late. The woman screams. The man with the crowbar turns to run. Then another, then many. You don't watch long. You turn off the monitor. You sit down. The pounding stops. The sounds outside change. Wet, animal, then silence. Hours pass at dusk. You turn the camera back on. The door is intact. The white rag lies on the ground, soaked through. You zoom out. No bodies, just blood trails leading away into the city. You clean the door carefully. Every smear, every fingerprint. Blood attracts attention. That night, you sleep deeply. The rules have been written. The city has read them. Tomorrow they won't knock. And so will you. A city doesn't need newspapers to spread news. It has fear. Fear travels faster by morning. The street feels different, not quieter. Aware, you see it on the cameras. Movement that stops when the lens turns. Figures keeping distance. People choosing longer routes to avoid your block. Good, you make coffee. The smell stays inside. You sit at the table and listen to the hum of the generators. A knock comes at 10:14 a.m. not on the main door. On the outer gate, 3 short taps, a pause. 2 more. You don't answer. The knock repeats. Careful, respectful. You open the camera feed. A man stands alone, mid-40s, clean clothes. No visible weapon, hands open. He looks straight at the camera. I'm not here to test you, he says. I'm here to talk. You let him wait. 10 minutes. Then you turn on the intercom. Talk. He exhales. They call you the cook, he says, or the ghost. Depends who you ask. You don't react. They say you don't miss, he continues. That you don't bargain, that you don't chase. A pause, but you listen. You consider that. What do you want? You ask. A boundary, he says. Rules. You smile. Rules are currency now. There's a group north of here, he adds quickly. 15 people, ex-cops, armed. You say nothing. They're mapping territory, he continues. They'll come eventually. Everyone comes eventually, you reply. He nods. We want to avoid that. You lean back, and in return, he swallows. We keep your name out of our mouths, he says, and your door off our map. Silence. You let it stretch. Finally, you speak. Your group stays 2 blocks north, you say. No fires at night. No hunting near my street. He nods immediately. No questions, he says. And one more thing, you add. You knock like today, you say, or you don't knock at all. A flicker of relief crosses his face. Understood. He steps back, leaves without turning around. By afternoon, you hear it. Whispers drifting through the ruins, stories sharpening themselves with every retelling. They say you fed the infected. They say you live underground. They say your door bleeds when touched by the wrong hands. You let the stories grow. Myths are lighter than bullets. At sunset, you climb to the roof. The city stretches out in red and black. Fires burn in distant blocks. You mark them on your map, power. People. Noise patterns emerge. Someone shouts your name, not your real one, the other one. You don't answer. You don't need to. Down below, a chalk symbol appears on a brick wall across the street, a crude warning or a sign of respect. You watch until dark, then you erase it. Names are dangerous, but so is anonymity. Tonight, the city doesn't see a shelter, it sees a line. And for the first time since the end, a line means something. Alliances don't begin with trust. They begin with need. 3 days pass without incident. That alone makes you uneasy. On the 4th morning, the radio crackles. Not your radio. An open band transmission. Weak, unencrypted. Some unknown wants to be heard. Anyone near 7th and Marshall, a voice says, "We're offering trade, medical supplies, ammunition. You don't answer, you record." 2 hours later, a second message, more confident. "We're not scavengers," the voice insists. "We're organized. Organized people always say that." By evening, they make their move. A signal flare blooms 2 blocks away. Blue, intentional. A meeting request. You watch from the roof. 5 figures gather around a folding table in the middle of the street. Bold, stupid, or protected. You wait until dusk before responding. 1 flare. Red. Not an invitation, a condition. They hesitate. Then 3 of them approach, only 3 better. You meet them at the edge of your territory, never at your door. The leader steps forward. Late 30s, former military posture, too clean. "We heard you're reasonable," he says. You nod once. "We want cooperation," he continues. "Shared patrols, shared intel." You study his hands. No tremor. Confidence comes from numbers. "What do you really want?" you ask. He smiles. "Stability, that's never the real answer." "You have 10 seconds, you say." The smile fades. He exhales. "There's a hospital zone reopening," he says quietly. "Generator, backed, fortified." You wait. "They need someone like you," he adds. "Someone local, someone feared." There it is. They don't want an ally. They want a symbol. "And what happens," you ask, "when I say no?" A pause. "Then someone else takes your block," he replies. "Honest, you appreciate that." You misunderstand, you say. "This isn't my block." You step closer. "This is my boundary," silence tightens. Behind him, one of his people shifts weight. You hear it. The scrape of metal, a blade. You move first. Your elbow breaks the leader's nose before the knife clears its sheath. The sound is dull. Final, you step back instantly. Hands up. "I warned you," you say. The others freeze. No one wants to die over a misunderstanding. They drag their leader away. Fast quiet, no threats, no promises. That night, your senses pick up movement. Not approaching, mapping. You shut down half the lights. You leave the rest on. A message. At dawn, the hospital zone broadcasts again. Different voice, different tone. "We'll respect existing territories. it says. You turn the radio off. They learned. For now, you sharpen your tools. Our lies are just enemies who haven't decided yet. You hear her before you see her. Crying has a way of slipping past walls. Not loud, not desperate, just tired. Your monitors catch the movement at 6:42 a.m. A small figure standing at the outer gate. Too small. She can't be older than 8. Maybe 9. She's holding a backpack that looks heavier than she is. No adults nearby. No shadows trailing her. That's what worries you. You don't open the gate. You never open the gate. You speak through the intercom. Go home, you say. She flinches, but doesn't run. I don't have one, she says. Her voice is steady, too steady. You zoom in, dirty jacket, pink sneakers, hair tied with a broken rubber band, no visible injuries. She's been taught how to stand still. That's worse. Who sent you? You ask. No one, she says. I smelled food yesterday. Of course she did. The rules ripple outward in ways you can't control. You can't stay here, you say. She nods. I know, she replies, but I can wait. You feel it then. Not guilt, calculation. A child changes math. You scan the surrounding streets. Nothing. No heat signatures. No movement. Either she's alone, or someone is very patient. How long? You ask. She shrugs. Until you say no again. Silence stretches. You switch camera angles. Nothing changes. She sits down with her back against the gate, pulls out a book. The cover is torn. You remember books. That surprises you. An hour passes, then 2. The sun climbs. She doesn't move. At noon, you break your own rule. You open the secondary hatch, not the gate. A narrow slot. You slide out a bottle of water and a granola bar. Take it and leave. You say. She takes the food carefully. Says nothing. She eats slowly, methodically, like someone who's learned not to trust abundance. Thank you, she says when she's done. She still doesn't leave. Why are you really here, you ask. She looks up. My mom said, she says, that if anything happened, I should find the man who smells like meat. Your chest tightens. Not emotion recognition. Sumano marked you. What happened to your mom? You ask. The pause is longer this time. She stayed behind, the girl says, so I could run. You close your eyes, just for a second. When you open them, the street is still empty. The choice hasn't changed, but you have. You can stay, you say finally, until dark. Her shoulders relax, just a little. What's your name? You ask. Emily, she says. You don't give yours. You never do. You open the inner door and trigger containment protocols. If this is a trap, it's a clever one. If it's not, it's worse. That night, you don't sleep. The city watches. And somewhere out there, someone is waiting to see what you do with a child. Opening a door is never just a gesture. It's a signal. You don't open the main gate. You never will. You guide Emily through the inner corridor with 3 layers of steel between her and the street. She follows instructions perfectly. Too perfectly. Stop, you say. She stops. Turn around. She does. No questions. No fear. Fear comes later, when children realize someone might take them back. You run the scanner. No weapons. No trackers. No infection markers. Just hunger. You give her a blanket and point to the chair. Sit. She sits. You hand her soup. Hot. You wait. She blows on it carefully and takes the first sip, her eyes close, not in pleasure, in relief. That's how you know this wasn't a setup. At least, not hers. Eat slowly, you say. She nods. You sit across from her with the table between you. Distance matters. Emily, you say, if people come looking for you, they will die. Her spoon freezes. I won't tell, she says quickly. That's not what I mean, you reply. They'll follow you. They'll test me. She looks down. I didn't mean to be trouble, you stand. Trouble has nothing to do with intention. That afternoon, the city reacts. Your senses catch it first. Movement patterns shift. Groups reroute. Someone noticed the gate opened. Someone always does. By evening, the radio hums again. Different frequencies. Short bursts. Code you don't speak it, but you understand it. Interest. After dark, a light flashes twice from a rooftop 6 blocks away. You turn off half your power. You leave one lamp on where it can be seen. A silhouette. A message. Emily sleeps in the secure room. She curls around the blanket, like she's afraid it might disappear. You don't wake her. You sharpen knives. You check ammunition. You revise the map. At 2:17 a.m., your perimeter sensor triggers. One person, crawling slow, intentional. You watch on the monitor. A man stops just outside your boundary. He places something on the ground and backs away. A child's shoe, pink. The match, a message. You don't retrieve it. Not yet. At dawn, you burn it. Emily wakes to the smell. What's that? She asks. Trash, you say. It's not a lie. By noon, Simone knocks on the outer gate. Not polite, not loud, deliberate, a test. You don't answer. The knock comes again. Then a voice. You took something that isn't yours, the voice says. You turn on the intercom. She's not an object, you reply. A pause, then laughter. Everything changes after that sound. You turn the system to full lockdown. You hand Emily headphones. Music, you say. No matter what you hear, don't take them off. She obeys. Outside, the city adjusts its plans. They know now. You didn't just draw a line. You crossed one, and lines, once crossed, demand blood. A siege doesn't start with violence. It starts with patience. The first day, nothing happens. No knocks, no threats, just absence. Your cameras show empty streets that shouldn't be empty, too clean, too intentional. They've pulled back. That's how you know they're serious. You reinforce the inner locks, triple check seals. Emily watches silently. She doesn't ask questions anymore. Children learn fast when silence keeps them alive. By nightfall, the power grid flickers. Once, twice, then stabilizes. A test. You switch to internal generators. Let the outside think you didn't notice. At midnight, sound travels. Not close far. Metal dragged across asphalt. Barricades being built. Not around you. Around the block. They're sealing you in. Morning comes without sunrise. Smoke hangs low from controlled fires. Your air filters hum louder. Emily sits beside you at the control console. Are they bad people? She asks. You don't answer right away. Some are hungry, you say finally. Some are afraid. And the others, they're organized. That answer scares her more. At noon, the radio comes alive, clear signal. Strong transmitter. This is a request. A voice says calmly, send the girl out. No one else gets hurt. You mute it. Requests are just threats wearing manners. At 2 p.m., the water pressure drops slow, deliberate. You switch to reserves. They're mapping your limits. By evening, the first shot is fired. Not at the door. At a transformer 2 streets away. The city goes dark. Your bunker doesn't. That matters. You dim internal lights. You let shadows work for you. At 9:11 p.m., a shape appears on the rooftop camera. Samo kneels and sets up a scope. You take a breath. You don't fire. Not yet. You shut down the exterior camera for exactly 10 seconds. When it comes back on, the rooftop is empty. A message received. At dawn of the second day, they escalate. A loudspeaker rolls into view. Powered, protected. You can end this. The voice booms. One child for one block. Emily grips your sleeve. Hard. You place your hand over hers. Go to the safe room, you say. She doesn't argue. That's worse than fear. You broadcast back. Number on word. Nothing else. Silence follows. Then movement, multiple heat signatures. Converging, they've decided. You lock everything. You sit. You wait. The siege has moved from negotiation to action, and somewhere outside, some owner is about to learn why patience cuts both ways. The first breach is never loud at first. It begins with a sound that doesn't belong. A vibration low, steady. Not footsteps moccaneery. Your senses confirm it. Hydraulic pressure against the outer barricade. They're not rushing. They're learning. You move Emily deeper into the safe room. Seal it. Manual override. No electronic signal leaves that space now. She doesn't cry. She just looks at you. Stay here, you say. She nods once. You close the door, lock it. Then you turn back to the screens. The outer gate dents inward millimeter. They've brought tools, a ram, improvised but heavy. You switch feeds, 3 teams, one on the gate, one on the roof, one probing the east stairwell. Textbook, Simona trained them. You let the gate hold. Let them commit at 3:26 a.m. The east stairwell sensor trips. Tripwire silent alarm. Good. You don't react immediately. You wait until the second man steps in. Then you trigger the lights. White, blinding, disorienting. They shout. You hear panic. You seal the stairwell door behind them. Now they're inside, but not where they want to be. You release smoke, not choking confusing. They fire blindly. Bullets chew concrete. You move. Fast. Quiet. You come up behind the first man and pull him backward. Your arm locks his throat. He struggles briefly. You lower him gently. The second one turns. Too slow. Your knife flashes once. Clean, efficient. No drama. At the gate, the ram finally breaks through. Metal screams. They cheer. That sound costs them. You trigger the external speakers. The low-frequency pulse rolls out again. This time, you've tuned it, sharper, angrier. From the darkness beyond the block, movement answers. Too much movement. On the rooftop feed, the sniper panics. He fires, misses. You mark his position. One shot. He falls backward, vanishing from the screen. You don't watch him land. Inside, the remaining team hesitates. They weren't told about this part. You speak over the intercom. Leave, you say. Now. Someone screams outside. Not human. The hesitation breaks. They run, dropping gear, dropping plans. You don't chase. You never chase. By sunrise, the street is quiet again, not empty, changed. You clean the stairwell. You patch the gate. You burn what can't be reused. At 7:12 a.m., you unlock the safe room. Emily steps out. She looks at you, then past you. She understands enough. Is it over? She asks. For today, you say. That answer is the truth now. Outside, the city counts its losses. Inside, you redraw the rules. The first breach failed. The next one won't be careless. After the first breach fails, smart enemies stop testing metal. They test people. The second day is quiet again. Too quiet. No movement near the gate. No shadows on the rooftops. Instead, your radio turns into a chorus. Not one voice. Many different accents, different ages, samey message. We just want the girl safe. She deserves a family. You're not her father. You turn the volume down but don't turn it off. Listening matters. At noon, they change tactics. Your perimeter sensor doesn't trip, your microphone does. Footsteps, small ones. You check the camera. Two figures stand at the edge of your boundary. A woman and a boy. The boy can't be more than 10. The woman holds his shoulders like she's afraid he'll float away. She waves, friendly, performative. You don't respond. They wait. After 5 minutes, the woman pushes the boy forward gently. He steps closer, too close. Hey, he calls. My mom says you have a girl here. Your jaw tightens. This is the door they've chosen, the human one. Emily watches from behind you. She's pale. That boy, she whispers. I know him. You glance at her. From before, she adds quickly. He lived near us. Of course he did. They never use strangers when familiarity cuts deeper. You activate the external speaker. Stop, you say. The boy freezes. The woman steps forward instead. She's scared. The woman calls. She misses people like her. She misses her mother. You reply. Silence. The woman's smile cracks. You're teaching her to hide, she says. That's not living. You don't answer. You switch feeds. Your thermal overlay shows movement 2 streets back. Cover teams, snipers, insurance. You speak again. Take one more step, you say, and you'll be responsible for what happens next. The woman looks down at the boy, hesitates for a second. She almost chooses correctly. Then someone shouts from behind her. Do it. The boy steps forward. The boundary sensor chirps. You fire. Not at him. At the pavement. The shot cracks the air. The boy screams and falls backward. The woman grabs him and runs. Chaos erupts. Your sensors light up. Movement everywhere. But no one crosses the line. They retreat. Fast. Messy, they've learned something new. So have you. Inside, Emily is shaking. I didn't want him hurt, she says. He isn't, you reply. But next time they won't use a warning. That night, they send voices instead of bodies. A loudspeaker plays recorded crying children. Looped, artificial. You shut down external audio. You give Emily ear protection. You sit with your back to the safe room door until morning. By dawn, the city is exhausted. So are you. They didn't try to break your gate. They tried to break your rules. Tomorrow, they'll try to break you. Every siege ends the same way. Samoan decides waiting is worse than dying. It happens at 4:03 a.m. No warning. No announcement. Your seismic sensor spikes. Not at the gate. Below it. They found the service tunnel. Old city plans. Pre-collapse infrastructure. You missed one line on the map. You don't swear. You don't panic. You move. You seal Emily in the safe room with a biometric lock. She grabs your sleeve. Don't leave, she says. You kneel. Look her in the eyes. I'm not leaving, you say. I'm protecting. She nods. Trust is a weight you didn't ask for. The tunnel feed flickers on. 4 men, breathing hard, flashlights shaking. They think they're clever. You flood the lower level, not water. Darkness. You kill the lights and switch to infrared. They don't have it. You do. You move through them like a rumor. The first goes down without a sound. The second fires wildly, hits nothing. The third runs. The fourth sees you. Really sees you. He drops his weapon. Please, he says. We just want the girl. There it is again, the lie they've repeated until they believe it. If you leave now, you say, you live. He hesitates. That's the choice. Samoan behind him shouts. A shot rings out. The 4th man jerks, blood blooming across his chest. He collapses, dead before he hits the floor. You turn. The shooter freezes. Realization arrives late. You don't give him time to speak. When it's over, the tunnel is silent. Your hands shake, just once. Then stop. You seal the tunnel permanently. Concrete, steel, fire. At sunrise, The radio crackles. Broken. They're pulling back, it says. This wasn't the plan. You don't respond. Plans don't survive contact with consequences. Emily comes out when you unlock the door. She looks at your hands. Clean. Too clean. Did you hurt someone? She asks. You say, did you have to? You think of the man who dropped his weapon, of the bullet that answered for him. Yes, you say again. She looks away. Something closes, not in the room, in you. By evening, smoke rises from distant blocks. The siege is over. So is something else. You didn't just defend a line. You chose a side. And sides. On's chosen. Don't let you go back to being alone. Cities don't vote. They drift. After the siege breaks, people move. Not all at once. Not loudly. Just enough to change the shape of things. Your cameras show it first. Barricades pulled back from certain streets. Lights appearing where there were none. Signals, careful, deliberate sent and answered. Some blocks go dark when you pass overhead. Others light candles in windows you can't reach. Word settles into something solid. Not a name, a direction. By the third day, the radio carries fewer threats and more questions. Is it true you don't trade children? Is it true you let people leave? Is it true you killed a man who begged? You don't answer any of them. Answers turn into leverage. Emily helps where she can. She cleans, sorts supplies, counts batteries. She doesn't ask to go outside. She doesn't ask about her mother. That silence is heavier than noise. At noon, a new broadcast cuts through. Strong signal, clear voice. This is the hospital zone, it says. We're declaring a corridor. Corridors are claims. They continue anyway. No weapons. No conscription. Medical aid only. You mark the route. It passes close. An hour later, a white cloth appears on a lamppost at the edge of your boundary. Then another symbols. They're choosing without asking you. By dusk, a group gathers, not at your gate, across the street. Men and women, old, young, empty hands. They don't shout, they don't beg. They wait. You open the intercom. This isn't a camp, you say. A woman steps forward, grey hair, steady eyes. We know, she replies. It's a line. She gestures behind her. Some of us want to live on the right side of it. You scan. No weapons. No hidden heat. Just exhaustion. Emily stands beside you. Quiet watching. You can't stay, you say. The woman nods. We don't want to, she replies. We want to pass. Passage is power. You look at Emily. She meets your eyes, doesn't plead, just waits. You make the smallest nod. You unlock the outer gate for exactly 30 seconds. They move quickly, grateful, silent. When the gate closes, no one cheers. Across the city, Simone paints over a warning sign. Elsewhere, Simone sharpens a knife. Signs form not by speeches but by footsteps. That night, Emily asks a question she's been holding. Are we good people? You think of the door, the tunnel, the man who dropped his weapon. You answer honestly. We're careful people, you say. She considers that. Then she nods. Outside, the city rearranges itself. Lines harden, paths emerge. The city has chosen sides, and whether you wanted it or not, you're one of them. Being right is expensive. You pay for it slowly in ways no one warns you about. The city settles into its new shape. Not peaceful, predictable routes form around your boundary. People move with purpose now, not hope, not fear. Calculation. You catalog losses. Ammunition, down 12%. Fuel, stable but finite. Food, enough. If nothing changes, something always changes. Emily grows quieter. Not sad, focused. She asks fewer questions and listens more. That worries you more than panic ever could. One afternoon, she finds a photo, tucked inside a drawer you haven't opened in years. A man, a woman, a dog. Smiles that didn't know what was coming. Is that you? She asks. You nod. You look different, she says. So does the world, you reply. She studies the picture. Were you happy? The question lands wrong, not painful, disorienting. Happiness wasn't something we measured back then, you say. We assumed it. She thinks about that. Did you lose them? She asks. Yes. How? You pause by surviving, you say. She accepts that without needing it softened. At dusk, the radio crackles again. Not a threat, not a request, a story. A woman's voice telling children why some streets are safer than others. She doesn't use your name. She doesn't need to. Later that night, you hear gunfire far away. Not near enough to matter. It still does. You sit at the table long after Emily sleeps. You write. Not plans. Names. People you remember. People you couldn't save. People who crossed your line and paid for it. The list grows. It always will. Near midnight, Emily wakes and comes to you. She sits quietly. Do you regret it? She asks. Which part? You reply. All of it. You think of the door you opened, of the ones you closed forever. No, you say finally, but I miss who it made me. She leans against your arm. Just for a moment, outside, the city breathes, uneven, scarred. Alive being right didn't save the world. It only made a place small enough to stand in. And tomorrow, you'll have to decide whether that's enough. Every story circles one question until it can't anymore. What happens after survival? The city hums differently tonight. Not louder. Closer. Generators sink unintentionally. Fires burn lower. Steadier. People are planning beyond tomorrow. That's dangerous. You feel it before you hear it. A meeting, not announced, not hidden necessary. At 8:40 p.m., 3 lights blink from 3 different rooftops. A triangle. Invitation. Emily notices. What does that mean? She asks. It means people are tired of guessing, you reply. You don't go. Not yet. You listen to the radio instead. Fragments drift through. Need coordination. Can't keep pretending. Children asking questions. That last one stays with you. Emily sits cross-legged on the floor, working on a map of her own. She's drawn paths, safe ones. She's very careful about where she puts doors. Why are you doing that? you ask. So people don't get lost, she says. You almost correct her. I'll most say people don't get lost anymore. They get taken. You let her finish. Latter, Simone knocks. Not at the gate. At the idea of it, a voice on the open band. We need you, it says. Not pleading, not threatening, honest. You don't need me, you reply. You need agreement. A pause. That's why we called, the voice answers. You look at Emily. She's watching you now, really watching. Shh. What are you afraid of? She asks quietly. You don't answer immediately. I'm afraid, you say finally, that if I say yes, I stop being a line and become a center. She nods. Centers get attacked. Everyone knows that. The radio voice returns. If you don't come, it says, Simone worse will. That's the question. Not should you lead, but who will if you don't? You turn off the radio. You sit in the dark with the weight of it. Emily breaks the silence. My mom used to say, she says, that grown-ups don't choose what's easy. They choose what they can live with. You small one, that night, you don't sleep. You prepare. Not weapons, words, maps. Boundaries that bend without breaking. By morning, the city will ask its question out loud, and silence will no longer be an answer. You don't open the door all the way. You never will. Morning arrives without ceremony. No alarms, no gunfire, just footsteps moving with intention. You step outside for the first time in weeks. Not past the boundary, just to it. The city waits, not a crowd. Groups, separated by habit, by fear, by memory. They don't chant your name. They don't need to. You speak first, not loudly, not softly. We don't build a new world, you say. We keep one alive long enough to matter. No applause. Good. Applause means misunderstanding. You lay out the rules. Simple ones. Corridors stay open. Children aren't traded. No one is forced to stay. Boundaries exist so people can cross them without blood. Someone asks what happens if the rules break. You answer, honestly. Then the door closes. They understand. They always do. Emily stands beside you. Shh, not behind. She holds the map she's been drawing. She hands it to the woman with the steady eyes. Paths marked carefully. Danger noted. Not dramatized. It's the most valuable thing in the city. By noon, people move again. Not fleeing. Passing through. The door opens for 30 seconds at a time. Enough. By dusk, the city sounds different. Not safe. Shh. Is this forever? She asks. No, you say. Nothing is. She thinks about that. Then she smiles, a real one. Later alone you stand by the door. You rest your hand on the metal. It's scarred, bent, still standing. You don't become a leader. You don't become a symbol. You become something rarer. A place where violence pauses to ask if it's worth it. The door stays open, not because the world is good, but because someone decided to keep asking it to be better, and tomorrow that will have to be enough.